Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for viewing my video. In this video I'm going to give my reading wrap up for the week of Sunday, July 7th through Saturday, July 13th. I completed 2 books this week. I'm going to give reviews of those books. I read parts of 2 other books. I'm going to talk briefly about those 2 books. I didn't get any new books, so I have nothing to talk about there. I'm going to talk about a Wobble I completed and one I started working on, and maybe a few other things going on in my life right now. The first book I read is Nancy Drew Diaries, number 25, What Disappears in Vegas. Normally I give an author bio, but because Carolyn Keene is a pen name and I have no idea who the actual author is, I have really nothing to say there. I know probably most people know about the character in Nancy Drew, but I'll just say a little just in case you don't. The series started a long time ago. I'm not sure exactly when, but it was available when I was a kid. I didn't read it then. I read a related series, The Hardy Boys, but it was available then, and I don't know how long before it started. The Nancy Drew Diaries is a recent retelling of them, modernized version. Nancy's a teen amateur detective. Her father is a lawyer. Her actual age isn't really specified in this series, but the stories are probably set in the summer between her senior year of high school and her first year of college. For one, she and her friends all have driver's licenses, and they also travel on plane trips themselves without anybody accompanying them. And Nancy has a boyfriend, Ned, who's in college. So I think that's probably about when she is. They're probably 17, 18. Nancy's assisted in trying to solve mysteries by her best friends, Bess and George, who are cousins. Not of Nancy, but of each other. In this particular book, Nancy, Bess, and George are traveling to Las Vegas to attend the wedding of one of Bess and George's cousins. As the wedding is about to start, an important person involved with the wedding disappears. And the remainder of the book is Nancy, Bess, and George trying to figure out what happened to this person and where they are, trying to find them. Should have said up front too, this is a middle grade mystery series. I found the solution to the mystery satisfying. I thought it made sense. There wasn't anything that stood out to me that it was like we were led to believe one thing and the solution didn't make sense. There was one thing that happened though, not the solution to the mystery, but happened toward the end of the book that didn't make sense to me, but it didn't really cause me to think any less of the book. I recommend this book for anyone who to read a middle grade mystery. It's a quick read. It'll take you a few hours. Perhaps if you read Nancy Drew with a kid or something, you want to revisit it, it might be a good one. But it's a good short read. I gave it 3.5 stars. Next I'm going to read a short passage of the book so you can get an idea of the writing style. This is actually from the beginning of the book because the book isn't particularly long, so I didn't want to give any spoilers. "Oh my gosh, Nancy," my friend Bess said, peering over the guardrail of a pedestrian bridge. It was a long drop, roughly 15 stories down a rocky fissure to a rushing river. "Remind me why I agreed to this?" I turned and shared a significant look with George, Bess's cousin, my other good friend. I couldn't imagine why Bess had decided to bungee jump off this bridge, and I was guessing that George couldn't either. Bungee jumping off this bridge was something that might appear in one of my nightmares. I like my feet firmly planted on the ground, thanks. But Bess had always been a little different. She liked to drive fast, take risks, and ride every roller coaster in a 100-mile radius. Plus, we were at a barbecue thrown by Bess and George's cousin Veronica, and Veronica's boyfriend owned the largest extreme sports complex in Chicago, Red Zone. As a surprise to the guests, Xavier had his team set up a bungee jump just steps away from the park where we'd been enjoying our hot dogs and hamburgers. All of us guests were welcome to try it, after signing a huge stack of waivers and legal documents. One of the things that first paragraph points out that kind of was a little jarring was that there's an implication here that Bess is somewhat of a daredevil, and that was never the case in any of the previous books. So that kind of threw me a bit. The second book I completed was On Writing a Memoir of the Craft. First, I want to give a short author bio. Before I do that, I was kind of thinking that the phrase that people sometimes use introducing somebody very famous at, say, some kind of event where they say, this person needs no introduction. That's actually true about Stephen King. Probably pretty much everybody who has read at least has heard of him and likely read something from him. But because I always do this, I am going to give the author bio, which, as I said, it was from the back of the book. Stephen King is the author of more than 60 books, all of them worldwide bestsellers. His recent work includes The Institute, The Elevation, The Outsiders, Sleeping Beauties, co-written with his son Owen King, the Bill Hodges trilogy, Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, and End of Watch. He is the recipient of the 2018 PEN America Literary Service Award and the 2014 National Medal of Arts. He lives in Bangor, Maine with his wife, novelist Tabitha King. This book is part autobiography and part Stephen King talking about his approach to writing and giving advice to people. It talks about his youth, his teen years, his early adulthood, talks about the reasons he decided to start writing, his submittal of short stories to various magazines, the rejections he got, his acceptances from magazines eventually. It talks about his meeting and marrying his wife. It talks about their 3 children. It talks about his first novel, Carrie, writing it, how it got published. He talks about dealing with some serious addiction issues. He gives his views on writing. He has what he calls his toolbox, which is the various things he uses in writing. He talks about grammar. He doesn't particularly like adverbs. He doesn't believe in plot. He does not outline his books. He basically has an idea that he believes can work for him going forward, and he starts writing. The characters kind of go where they go. He doesn't know where they're going to end up when he starts. He also doesn't think very highly of college creative writing courses where they try to teach people how to write novels. He talks about a very bad accident he was involved in when he was walking and he was hit, and he had a really difficult recovery. And I have to say that the person kind of got off very lightly. I'm not sure I think too highly of that particular court in Maine who let the guy off lightly, because the guy had previous problems with driving. There's a short section with Owen King talking about Stephen, and there is a transcript from a talk that Stephen had with his other son, Joe Hill. The book finishes with Stephen King listing various books that had a big impact on him from the decade of the 80s, then the decade of the 90s, the decade of the aughts, and the decade of the 2010s. Books that he really liked and that had a positive impact on him. I recommend this book to anyone who wants to read an autobiography about Stephen King, learn about his writing process. I also recommend it to anyone who they might not necessarily be a fan of Stephen King, but they'd like to learn the approach of probably the most popular writer. I'm sure he's the most popular writer of our generation. Perhaps any generation, I'm not sure about that, but certainly the most popular of our generation. I think that most people who read this book will be approaching it from the fact that they are Stephen King fans, and they not necessarily writers themselves or aspire to writers, but it is good for those people too, as I said. It's a pretty quick read, little over 200 pages, I believe. I gave it 4 stars. And I'm going to read more Stephen King too. I have a short story collection that he recently released that I do have that I want to start reading soon. And next I want to talk about the two books I read part of this week. The first is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I'm probably about 80% through this book. And I have to say that once I got a little ways into this book, it's hard for me to put it down. I read longer than I intend to. I just want to know what's going to happen next. I'm not going to say too much here, but I'll just say this. I do plan to purchase and read the second book very soon, so that in itself probably tells you what I think of this book. The other book I read part of this week is The Crown Games of Ancient Greece by David Lunt. This book is about the ancient Olympics, but also 3 other athletic competitions that took place at that time. Actually, they're much more than athletic competitions, but that's just what we would think of looking back at them. The book is good. It presents a lot of facts. It is a little dry, so I do find sometimes it's a little difficult to get through some of it. I think a mistake I'm making too is I read that in the evening, 9, 10 o'clock, and that's probably wrong to read that's probably a wrong time to read a book like this, but I am getting a lot from it. I would expect I'd complete both Fourth Wing and The Crown Games of Ancient Greece by next weekend, so I would hope that I'll have reviews for them in my next weekly wrap-up. And next I just want to talk about the Wobble I completed this week and the one I started working on. What I completed is Bubbles of the Powderpuff Girls. This one was actually the most difficult one that I've done so far. This is the 8th one I've completed. There's multiple color changes, which you can see here. There was the hair, the pigtails, the hands. So this was a difficult one. So I'm happy how she came out. I barely started one. It's one mystery donut. This one is, you don't know exactly what donut you're getting, thus the mystery. And the one I got was a cat. I only started. I just have this this little loop. So I've barely started. But hopefully I'll have this one done next week. Other than that, I watched some WNBA games. And I watched a little professional wrestling, actually a Joshi Wrestling Federation that I am able to see through a Japanese wrestling streaming service. I really like professional wrestling. I've really gotten away from it between all my reading, doing these videos, doing the Wobbles, watching the WNBA games, but I want to get back to it because I really like professional wrestling, so I want to watch some more of it. Besides that, I walked a couple times at the local mall. I got a rowing machine here that I work out on some days when I don't go out. I wanted to try an alternative to iTunes for some music files that I have, so I downloaded this site called Music Bee, and I put some music on it. So far it seems to work pretty well. So that's about how my week went. Thanks for watching my video. I would be interested in hearing how your week went, reading-wise or otherwise. Any books you really liked, any books maybe you didn't really like, other things you'd be interested in talking about. If you would like, please reply to my comments. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, please hit the bell to get notified when I upload future videos. Hope you have a wonderful reading week, and I hope you have a wonderful week in general.